hard to live up to your introduction. So yeah, the last bit of the introduction referred to my, can you see me over the mic? Referred to my current research as part of English Profile. English Profile is driven by Cambridge ESOL and Cambridge University Press. I have to stress I don't work for Cambridge University Press or Cambridge ESOL, and they approached me and a woman called Geraldine and Mark because we both have expertise in corpus linguistics, and because we have expertise in grammar for learners. That we've recently completed the major grammar program, a major grammar course. So I don't know anything really about testing, I'll say that first and foremost. But I've been handed all these tests in electronic format, and they're linked to the Common European Framework levels. So they say to me, as a corpus linguist with a language teaching background, what can you tell us from these tests about what students can do in terms of grammar at these different levels? So in one sense it's an academic exercise for me, but in the process of doing this research, I'm learning a lot. And most of all, I'm learning that this is really a profile of English in the context of Cambridge exams, and that much more needs to be done if we're going to do a full profile of English. So I have no problem about saying that. And I'll stress that again as I go along. Now, what they gave me as a resource is the Cambridge Learner Corpus, and that contains 35 million words from the Cambridge exam scripts from over 135,000 exam scripts across 130 different first languages and in 190 different countries. So that's an amazing, for a corpus linguist, who's kind of salivating at the prospect of getting your hands on this. And they have lots of field information about all the candidates, as I'll show you in a minute. And just so much data. That's all we think about, data. We don't care about levels and all that stuff. Norms and criteria. But trying to understand testing then is my new challenge. So I'm coming at it from a totally different angle. Which maybe brings another perspective, I hope. I value very much your feedback on the talk at the end, actually, so do challenge me or give me your ideas. So the learner corpus itself, the corpus is just this electronic resource. When the students do the exams, the bits that have writing in them that can be typed up, they're keyed up, and then any errors are given a code. Now this is done post-grade. It's not the person grading the text marks the errors. Okay, it can be used in research. Obviously, it can be used by Cambridge ESOL, and it is used by Cambridge ESOL. And it can be used by research students, materials designers. As you can imagine, it's a great resource for people writing materials within Cambridge University Press. They can see what students get wrong, what typical errors in writing the English Grammar Today book. It was a fantastic resource. You're writing an entry on articles, look up the errors on articles, or look up articles, and you find the errors and you find the context. You find also what students get right and very good examples of student language and typical use. It's used very much now as part of this English Profile project. And from all different angles, looking at, say, the oral exams, the recordings are being transcribed, and Michael McCarthy's leading up that angle of the research. It involves a large number of institutions and researchers, as well as Cambridge ESOL. And it was recently, I think they completed the first stage of the word list, which basically means that they tried to analyze how many words students would typically know at the different levels. And so the next stage is they hope to have from us some sort of a grammar profile. They have a website which you can look up, englishprofile.org, and you can find out on the bottom there's a research menu. If you're interested in doing some sort of collaborative research, they have an interface where you can load your own students' data, and I think they'll code it and it's shared, so there's ongoing collaborative work there that if you're interested you can follow up on, and they have small kind of funding grants for people who are interested in doing research into the exams. No, sorry, not just the exams, but formative type assessment within the classroom, for example, just essay tasks and things like that. So the Cambridge, or the Common European Framework, has 6 levels, as I'm sure you know. It's counterintuitively, when I went to school, I always wanted to get an A1. It's the opposite here. A1 is the lowest, and it's work A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. So you aspire to a C2. I still find that hard to think of C2 as being at the top. And so this framework, in theory, it's a great idea, used for all language competencies, for all languages, that you say that if you're a B2 learner, these are the things you can do in speaking, in listening, in writing, etc. So you've got typical, I suppose, learning outcomes. In terms of Cambridge exams, say the typical Cambridge suite of the Cambridge Proficiency is linked to C2, Cambridge Advanced English or the Certificate of Advanced English is at C1, FCE, B2, PEC, B1, etc. Now, that in itself is open to challenge, but that's not my job at the moment. But certainly, there's a lot of debate to be had around those. But this is what I'm given. I'm given their data, which is linked in this way to the Common European Framework levels. Okay, that's how they have pegged them within the corpus. And so here's an example from speaking from the Common European Framework. Like Barry, I find it must be we're both Irish. Maybe we have this jittery gene to move around. And no, it feels much better already. Just to give you a sense that you need a bit more padding out on these. These are very broad. So these are some of the descriptors, competency or can-do statements for fluency, your oral exams within any language. So that if you're a B2 learner, that you can interact with a degree of fluency and spontaneity that makes regular interaction with native speakers quite possible without strain for either party. Okay? Generally get that, okay? Go up a level at C1. You can the student can express him or herself fluently and spontaneously without much obvious searching for expressions, and then can use language flexibly and effectively for social, academic and professional purposes and so on. Move up another level, can understand with ease virtually everything heard or read, can express him or herself spontaneously, very fluently and precisely. While they each make sense in their own right, it's hard to see the graduation, how do you break it down more empirically. So that in essence, I suppose, is what English Profile is about, is to try and give some empirical basis or padding out, fleshing out of these reference level descriptors, the can-do statements. Could you be more specific is basically the challenge. So the task ahead for English Profile is to profile what it means really to be a learner at A1, A2, B1, etc., etc. To make the Common European Framework of Reference can-do statements more objective by looking at corpus data. They've addressed the question of what vocabulary do you know at the different levels, and Geraldine Mark and I have been asked to look at what grammar do you know. Now, and the resources. Now here's the tricky bit. For me, as I say, I don't work for Cambridge, so I have no problem pointing to this great weakness. So we've got course books. We look at where a structure is being taught. For us, that's interesting. There's quite a lot of consensus out there in terms of syllabi. There's an intuition there across most course books as to where you present the present perfect and so on. You have exam syllabi, so you can look at those. Then you can look at the corpora, the actual data. You can look at the Cambridge Learner Corpus. Now, if you just do that, things become very cyclical. You're going to find out you're going to profile what a B2 learner can do in the context of the Cambridge exams. So you're profiling what you test. So you see the circularity. You could compare it with native speaker corpora to try and break out a little, to see, you know, how does this pattern in the exams compare with the same word if you search it in a native speaker context. I'll show you examples of this as I go on. Very important, I think it needs to be looked at in a non-Cambridge exam context, okay? I think it needs some non-exam data entirely, you know, just classroom essays where students are not in test situation. So, to be fair, to that end, Cambridge have invested a lot of money and are continuing to do so. For example, they've collected 1 million words of recordings in a college near where I live in Shannon College of Hotel Management, for example. 50% of the students there are non-native speakers of English, so they have a CEFR level for the students, and they have their recordings of their interactions with native speakers and also their written work and their recordings in their English language classes. So in a sense, that's a nice bit of extra non-exam data, and there are many others. I just happen to know about that one in a lot of detail. So if English is to be profiled properly, I think we need as much components as possible. I mean, I would say, I would point to that weakness, but I would say you have to start somewhere, and I think the fact that Cambridge is doing it might force others to invest in similar research, and that, you know, what might come out of a big debate would be some consensus then about levels, challenge the idea of levels and discrepancies between levels, and also to get some consensus about these descriptors. So it's very much a starting point, and I'm just starting out in this research as well, but I have no illusions about us being able to say English is now profiled if we just limit this to Cambridge data. So moving on with the Cambridge data, this is if I put in a search word into my corpus, just like Google, put in a search word and bang, you get all of the hits. So everywhere in the corpus of scripts where the word make was used, it will pop up in the middle of the screen, okay? And so there you have make. When you scroll down there, you come to where make has been used and the student should have used do. So you can see that it's tagged. For example, take that line there, and that line has been marked because there's an error there. Not only there's an error, the student uses making, they use the wrong form, so that's changed to make, and then the error itself is the verb should have been do. So taking that error there, you can see at the top, I didn't bring my zapper, and the header information that comes with that script is that it was a CPE exam taken in Mexico in 2000. First language was Spanish, the student failed. Okay, now I can click and I can go into the actuals, that's what the student, that's the context question itself, so I can get the full script, you know, context of the line itself. So that's actually, let's see if this will work. Oh, it does. From the perspective of, say, a coursebook writer, this is also very useful. I'll just throw this in here because you can see context stuff, like make and do errors. You see that a lot of them are tied up with activities, leisure activities like, you see, backpacker, help, exercise and sport, okay? An awful lot of these errors occur in those contexts. So that's useful if you're writing a textbook and see, well, that's an area, it would be good to get texts around that, talk about your hobbies. And that's an error you're going to expect. The students will talk about making sport and so on. And also you can see that vocabulary context relating to work and presentations. I guess work, you could say, job, long hours, work, job, presentation, and make a presentation, and make the work, and so on. And this is one that arises as well, even in just this one screenshot. But this points to a little problem that I have to be aware of. All of these come from one type of exam. They all come from the business English exams. So you have to be very careful about the exam effect, the task effect, in terms of looking at the corpus as well.